In this video, we will go over Step 3 to demonstrate how to evaluate job classes to give them point values. Haifa and Lucian, owners of Upcycled Fashion, are now getting ready to complete Step 3 of the toolkit. They pull out the job descriptions they have for the company.
For this third step, we need to gather the job descriptions we have so that we can give each job class a point value.
What do you mean by point value? Do you mean how well our employees are performing in their jobs?
No, it means quantifying the value each position brings to our company by scoring the job classes against a consistent and fair set of factors.
Oh, right. I remember now that you told me that pay equity is not about evaluating the performance of individual employees. But how is it possible to quantify all of the jobs in Upcycled? They're all so different.
Have you ever heard the expression, "you can't compare apples to oranges"? It's an expression used to describe a comparison between two things that are so different that the comparison seems impossible. However, you can compare apples to oranges if you examine the individual elements they have in common. Let's say you are trying to decide which fruit is best for eating raw. If you don't compare them fairly, you might jump to the conclusion that apples are more edible than oranges because it's easy to just bite into an apple, whereas you have to peel an orange first. But if you're interested in the full range of health benefits of eating raw fruit, you can compare them on the basis of neutral factors like fiber content, vitamin C, potassium, and sugar. Likewise, in the workplace, it is possible to compare jobs that are very different if we look at the elements they have in common. For example, we might instinctively think that education is a standard and neutral way to value jobs, but not all of our jobs require formal education. This is why it is important to consider other elements like communication skills and dexterity. It's also important that we consider numerous factors, rather than just one or two, to minimize the risk that our unconscious biases might lead to inequitable pay for our staff. In Ontario, the law requires us to use 4 factors: skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. Each factor is further broken down into subfactors in the toolkit for a total of 17 subfactors. We have to choose at least one or more subfactors for each factor that are most relevant to our company. Of the 17 subfactors, here are the 12 subfactors that we agree are relevant to Upcycled Fashion. For each subfactor that we select, we have to assign a percentage or weight so that they all add up to 100%. The weight represents the relative importance each subfactor has for our organization as a whole.
How do we decide to assign these percentages?
We use our knowledge of the business, the detailed subfactor descriptions in the toolkit, and our best judgment.
Okay, I'm keeping up with you, but I don't understand how we get from these weightings to point values.
We have one more action to take here, which is that for each subfactor, we assign a level appropriate for each job class. The level represents the requirements of that job class. Each level has a specific number of points or value assigned to it. The toolkit helps us out by defining specific levels for each subfactor. All we need to do is pick the right level from the toolkit for each job class. For example, for the education and job knowledge subfactor, we previously decided that we needed the web developer to have a 3-year post-secondary diploma or degree. So that lines up with level 5 for the education subfactor. And so we click on the number 5 here in the toolkit. The part-time customer service job class doesn't require a lot of formal education, and we've hired several high school students who are doing a fine job at sales. That lines up with level 1 of the education subfactor, partial high school. So we click on the number 1 here in the toolkit.
And I see that the toolkit has already defined the number of points for each level. Where do we enter these point figures?
We don't need to. The toolkit does the calculations for us in the background. Once we've assigned the weight for the subfactor and the level for the job class, the toolkit calculates the point value. And since we are exercising our best judgment here, the toolkit makes it super easy to go back and make adjustments until we're satisfied with it.
Can you show me what this looks like in the toolkit?
Sure. Let's go back to the weighting table and start with communication skills, which we determined was the most important subfactor based on the detailed description in the toolkit. Since we have to divide 100 across 12 subfactors, and we think communications is the most important of the 12, why don't we start by giving it a weight or percentage of 20? Then we distribute the remaining 80% across the remaining 11 subfactors in a way that we think best reflects the relative importance of each. We'll probably need to adjust the percentages a few times until we're satisfied with the distributions. Making these adjustments is easy to do in the toolkit. We continue like this for each of our chosen subfactors for every male and female job class.
Aha! So the toolkit will automatically calculate the total point value once we've selected the level for each job class for each subfactor.
You got it. The toolkit then gives us a one-chart summary so we can see everything at a glance.
All right, I think I've got it. Let's move on to step 4.
This video presents one hypothetical business scenario. It is for information only and is intended to assist employers in complying with the Pay Equity Act. It is not to be construed or considered as legal advice, nor warranted to be complete and accurate, and may be amended without notice. It does not restrict review officers of the Pay Equity Office in their interpretation and determination of matters under the Act.